Okay, we're rolling.
Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you. I hope you're doing well. I want to talk to you about what happens when your schedule changes as a podcaster, and how do you keep podcasting when outside pressures and reduced time shows up for you as a podcaster. Things change. Something happened. Life changed. Something in your calendar changed, and the time you had is no longer there, or you're starting a show and you're like, how am I even going to fit this into my week? I want you to understand that the majority of podcasters are doing this on the side. The majority of podcasters are not monetized. The majority of podcasters would be considered what some would disdain at and call hobbyists, like we're less than. But the majority of people, the majority of podcasts that make life-changing money is the small, tiny minority. You're not going to get that feeling at a conference because it's going to be all about making money with your podcast and getting 100,000 views and being in the top 100 and a lot of listen notes and all that junk. Because it's based on ad sales, and the ad people want to talk about the big shows and the big numbers. But 80 to 85% of podcasts are made by independent podcasters like myself, who doesn't have a team. I don't have life-changing money coming in from this show, which my wife would appreciate, but I don't. And we make up the majority, not the minority. So keep that in mind. When you go to a podcasting conference and look around the room, the majority of those people there are represented more by independent podcasters than the big shows. Just keep that in mind. Okay? So when we talk about having time for your podcast, the majority of podcasters are doing this podcasting thing in the margins of life. This isn't their full-time career. This isn't how they pay their mortgage and put their kids through university. No, this is different. This is something they do after work in their 5 to 9 and on weekends. This is where podcasting lives for the majority of us. So keep that in mind. I think that's really important for us to understand. And I want to talk just about a change that's happened for me in my show, in my life, where the time I had has significantly changed and I have to adjust. So I'm living this in real time right in front of you. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you navigate balancing your time. Leave me a message on my speak pipe over at howtopodcast.ca. Love hearing your voice. Tell me where you're from. Tell me about your show, where you're listening, anything. I'd love to hear. I just want to hear your voice. So let me know, what are you doing to balance your time as a podcaster as part of the 80 to 85% of podcasters who are independent, not monetized, like me. So here we go. So here's the change. I am an empty nest dad. And my kids all left the house in and around that global event thing, you probably remember, where everybody learned how to use Zoom overnight. Yeah, that event. My kids moved out, all 3 of them, within weeks, less than a month of each other. They all moved out, boom, gone. My wife and I went from a busy house of 5 to an empty house of 2. And in that vacuum of time, my wife and I gained back some significant time and quiet in the house too. It was really a big change. And for me, I inherited time that I never had before. So I was able to set up my podcast and create content and do it because my wife works during the day and I work during the night. So we have opposite shifts. So, she's at work right now. The house is empty. It's 12:30 in the afternoon and there's nobody here except me and the dogs and the cat and the turtle. Yeah, that's it. Just us. And all of those are relatively quiet. So I get a chance to get on the mic and record whenever I want, do interviews, coach, help people with their podcasts. I get to do all kinds of fun stuff. Edit for people. I edit for people's shows. It's the best. And then my son, my youngest son, who has 2 kids under 2, moved back home with his kids. It's just him and his 2 kids. And he's living here at home again. And he's brought his children with him. And he has a job. So now he goes to work every morning at 7. I get home from work at 7, 7:15. So I don't even see him when I get home. He's already gone to work. My wife gets up in the morning. She goes to work by 9:30 in the morning for 10. And I am the caregiver for the most part during the week. There's a couple days here and there scattered where the kids will go to another relative. But for the most part, it all comes and lands on my shoulders. Now, I love my grandchildren. My gosh, like, I am super thrilled to have time with them. I am staying up all night and then all day to watch them, so I don't get any sleep. But at the same time, those hours I had in my schedule to podcast, they're gone. I've had to completely reorganize my life now so that I can do interviews during their nap time, because they do nap in the afternoon for about 2 hours. So I have that window of time. I have evenings and I have the weekends. That's it. So my schedule has completely changed. I have responsibilities to others that I need to maintain, and I have responsibilities to my own shows. So far, I've been doing this for a while. So far, I've been able to keep the ball rolling and all the plates spinning, as we say. But it's a lot of work. So for you as a creative person wanting to start a show or continue your show, and you're just busy, and life hands you something different you weren't expecting, and your calendar changes, your availability changes, the amount of time you have every day, every week, every month changes. What do you do? How do you keep yourself organized? So I want to talk about that here on the show, give you some of the things that I'm doing in real time so that I can win back some sense of control on my podcast and keep creating and keep doing what I love, because this is my life. I love podcasting. And I know you do too. So I like these stats because I think it really helps just to understand what's going on in podcasting. The independent reality, 80% of new podcasts in 2025 were launched by small creators, entrepreneurs, and hobbyists. A 2025 report found that 15% of independent podcasters were making any money at all from their content directly. Indirectly would be you're a coach, somebody listened to your show and they hired you for their coaching program. Technically, the podcast brought them to you, but it wasn't the podcast directly that you made money from. Sponsorship, ads, that kind of thing would be direct income from your show. Just that's kind of how we're breaking this down. And the income breakdown among those who do make money, 46% only break even. That just covers their costs or make a small profit, while 8% report that their podcast is their primary income source. 8% of people, their podcast is their primary income support. Let that sink in for a second. So when you come to me and say, Dave, I want to start a show and I want to quit my regular job. You want to be part of the 8%, not the 92 who don't do that. Just keep that in mind. The actively established exception, while most are independent, a small segment, approximately 7% of independent podcasters are considered actively established, consistently releasing and monetizing, accounting for about 95% of total podcast listenership. So the small majority of shows that make the most money represent the largest audiences of listeners for the most part. And many podcasters choose independence for creative control, with 65% of creators doing all the work themselves, aiming for audience engagement rather than direct revenue through their show. So that's just some information to kind of level the playing field here, because the advantage you have by your podcast being your regular income, your full income, and you don't have any other job, is that you have time. Like, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. And just because you don't work well with a group and you don't like a boss, you don't like somebody telling you what to do, doesn't mean that's the foundation of starting a podcast. It could just mean that you need to develop your personal skills. So if you are thinking about starting a podcast from scratch and you want it to be your full-time job from day one, you better have another person helping to support you. That's kind of the goal. So let's get back to what we're talking about on the show now. How do you organize your time? How do you create space for yourself in your podcast? Life is going to throw you curveballs, new jobs, family demands, health setbacks. All these things are going to help and hinder you at the same time, because you're going to have to scramble to get the most dialed in podcast schedule possible to be as efficient as you can. Busy podcasters, they're juggling like a lot of things at the same time. It can be overwhelming. It really can be. I think we got to look at how we reset and audit our time and have a sober assessment of what time do we have. I think that's the first thing. I think we need to focus on what the new normal is. We need to look at our calendar and come up with, well, here are the windows of time that I can change and I can be available for. For me, I use Calendly to block out my calendar, and they're public links to the world through my show notes and my website. They're shareable, and people have access into my calendar. They can see. So I've blocked off time. I've given myself buffers between meetings so that I don't go meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. I have a little bit of gap in between each, and that automatically does that. It goes about 2-3 months out into the future as well, so there's a lot of freedom into the future. But I block out the times when either I'm going to be working, sleeping, watching the kids, whatever that is, editing for other people, and you get what you get in my calendar. And I know this is the one downside of having a change to your schedule. It means you're not going to be available to everyone all the time, every day. And that's a hard reality, and it's going to be frustrating for your guests to book time with you if there's only these small windows of time. But as a guest, I've looked into other podcasters' calendar as I'm setting up time with them, and I can see that they have very limited space in their calendar, and like one day a week or one afternoon, one evening a week. I've seen some pretty small amounts of availability from some people on their shows. So don't be afraid. Scale it back, and if you find time, then you can open it up a little bit. But use a tool like Calendly or another tool like that, an online calendar service. And if you're going to find that, I would also suggest you have a calendar service that automatically adjusts for time zones, because that's a real pain in the butt to try to figure out who's when and where. It's really, really hard. So Calendly does that automatically, and I don't have to worry about it. So start by auditing your week. Go through and figure out, here's what I'm spending my time on, Sunday to Saturday. Here are the family times, block them out. Here are my work times. Here's my rest time, my sleep, my everything. Block it all out, and then where you see the gaps, that's where you're going to either record your own solo episode, interview a guest, edit a show, whatever you're going to be doing, coach, whatever you're doing, that's going to fit into the gaps in your schedule. But you need to know your schedule before you can set the gaps. So audit your week. Go through and track out your entire week. Do your week like you normally would, and write down what you're doing and when. I would just use, again, Google Calendar, for example, or something else, a spreadsheet, whatever. Keep track of what you're doing in every 15, 30, 1 hour segments, whatever, and block it out, and then take a look back at it at the end of the week and go, wow, like I spent 7 hours watching TV. Okay, well, maybe we can cut that back a little bit. Do you really need 7 hours of downtime watching TV, or is that just a guilty pleasure for you? Got to be realistic here. You got to find time where, and it's going to hurt a little bit because you're going to have to cut something. So you're either going to cut it from family or personal care or sleep. You're going to cut it somewhere. So be careful where you cut, because it could really, really hurt. Just keep that in mind. So go through, track your week. Make sure give yourself some grace in there. Don't be super, super overscheduled, but you definitely want to account for any spare minutes and time that's has been unaccounted for in the past. And then focus in too on creating non-negotiable blocked times. So if podcasting is your priority, and whether you're a new podcaster or a long-time podcaster, you're going to need to find time. So I would try to book something that's on a regular cadence where you are at your best when you come to the mic, not when you're done and tired at the end of your day and you're exhausted, but when you are most creative to create your content, record your content, be up on the mic, be happy and present, not exhausted and tired, and block out that time and treat it just like you would a doctor's appointment. It is a must-do, must-be, must-attend event. And no one else has time in your calendar during that time because that's your recording time. That's your creative time. And whatever that time is, focus it, make it, and create that, block it off, protect it with your life. Because if you don't set out time, you're never going to do it. It's just going to, your week is going to fly by and you'll be looking at it at the end of the week and you're like, what did I get done? So audit and reset your time frames, track your time, find the gaps, protect the important stuff, give up on some things that aren't feeding you, and start tracking. That's the first thing I would suggest for you as a podcaster and a creative person. Do that. The next is to batch to reclaim your hours. So if you have a 2-hour window of time on a given day to do podcasting, and you do like a 1-hour podcast, first of all, I want to know if your listeners are listening to the entirety of a 1-hour podcast, because I probably guarantee they're not. Maybe you can cut that show down into 25 minutes, 30 minutes. You could take a 60-minute podcast and turn it into 2 30-minute podcasts, and now you have 2 weeks of content instead of one. There's some things we can do here. You could cut it into 4 15-minute podcast episodes. There's a lot of different approaches you could do here. So part of this relies on the retention rate for your episode, how long people are listening, not just the fact that they hit play. So that's one thing you and I can talk about and review together at howtopodcast.ca. Calendar links right there. We can actually start going through and go, okay, look, you're spending this much time on an episode, but you're only getting this much return on your investment. So if we tweak it down to this, your audience seems to resonate more with smaller episodes compared to longer episodes, then maybe you can earn back your time. So reclaim your time by batching. Again, could be multiple things. If you're going to record an episode and say you have a 30-minute episode and you have a 2-hour window of time, try to do more than one episode in one sitting so that you gain the weeks back. And if you can get ahead of yourself, you can gain a whole month of free time where you can focus on something else. But you have to stay on top of it. Batching only works if you stay ahead of it. If you batch and then you don't do anything on your podcast for the next month, you're going to come right back to where you started and start all over again being behind. You want to be in front of it. So when you can, do more than one thing at the same time. When you're editing, edit more than one show. When you're recording, record more than one show. When you're looking for guests, try to find 3 guests instead of trying to find one. When you're doing your social posts, maybe do less social posts or do all of the social posts at once. Like create the content now for the future as well. There's a lot of different things you can do. Batching is going to give you back time. And some people like batching, some people don't. But batching isn't just about recording your episode. It's about all of the other things that go along with it. So if you're going to research, you might as well research 3 topics instead of 1 and start building out your content that way. So batch. Just do that. It's going to really, really help you. And the other part of this that I like to focus on too when I'm coaching podcasters is to nurture your listeners without the daily grind. Without all that expectations behind the scenes that other gurus put on you and pile on you. You don't have to do it all. Your community craves connection with you. Yes, they'll listen to your show. Yes, they'll consume your content. But they will much rather have time with you and feel a connection with you than just hear your content. There's nothing wrong with repurposing content. Repurposing past episodes if you've been doing this for a while. Bringing them back. Retouching them. Re-recording them. Doing an update to a past episode. Same topic, same conversation, but there's new information. You're different. You're different than you were 200 episodes ago. So your insights might have changed. You might have grown up a little bit. So you could re-release content. Just because you released it once doesn't mean everybody heard it. So don't be afraid to revisit topics that you really enjoy talking about. And another thing we can do together through howtopodcast.ca is go through your back catalog of episodes and pull out the episodes that your audience really loved. And we can do things with that content. We can do stuff with the topics to have people fall in love with it even again and more often and have deeper connection with your audience. So repurpose ruthlessly. There are podcasters out in the space right now that are preaching to you and speaking down to you that you have to do 100 different things when your podcast goes live if you want to be a true podcaster. 72-hour rules and this and that and all kinds of different stuff going out there. And I want to give you an example of something just to kind of offset the overwhelm of all of this indoctrination that's going on in podcasting by gurus that tell you that if you're not doing everything, you're not doing enough. Podcast Editing and Support Show, one of my multiple podcasts, has no social media at all. Never posted on Instagram. I have no threads. I have nothing for that show. Nothing. It's just me recording episodes and putting them out twice a month, every second week. That's it. I have a website. I have a good show title, which is a searchable term. So that works for me. But that show is like in a whole bunch of countries. I think like 60 to 70 countries have been listening to that show with no promotion at all. Nothing. No, how is that possible? Well, it's good content. Like it's a good name. It works. People find it. People share it. And I don't have to do anything. So I don't promote any episode on that podcast at all. Nothing. And I'm doing that on purpose. Like that was the plan from the beginning. I didn't just fall into that. I planned it that way. I was not going to have any social platforms at all for that show. I want to show you and prove to you and give you that as a resource and as an example to go, you don't have to do all of the things people say. Can it benefit you? Well, obviously, the more you promote it, the better chance somebody's going to hear about it. But a social media person isn't always a podcast listener. So you're kind of not preaching to the choir when you start promoting your podcast to people on social media. That's not why they're there. They're there for totally different reasons. Your podcast is different. Your audience is different. Could you convert somebody? Sure. Yeah, you definitely could convert them. But everybody? No. No, not at all. So that daily grind of creating social clips and content and posts and blogs and this and that, newsletters and all that stuff, great if you have time. And if you are one of the 8% who have podcast as their full-time career and it's all you do is make money from your show, then you're going to probably have a team to do that for you, not usually the host of the show. They just show up and they're the talent. You have the freedom to do all those things. And the people that are preaching those things to you are usually the ones that are trying to be or are in that top 8%. The 92% of us don't have the time to do that. And we shouldn't feel guilty for not doing it. So if you're listening to podcast gurus who make you feel guilty that you're not doing enough, it's time to get a new guru. It's time to get a new show to fall in love with. Do I consider myself a guru? I don't think so. But this show is meant to be the counter to that constant barrage of you're not enough in podcasting. So that's what we do here. And I hope you hear that in the content. The last part here around reclaiming your calendar and your schedule when things change is that you as a creative person need to protect your energy and avoid some of the traps that a lot of people fall into. It's really important. Health and family are super important. Podcasting fuels your mission of encouragement and growth. But if you burn out, you are not a great example to your audience of how to balance life. when I talk to a doctor who says that you need sleep, and then I ask the doctor, then why do you guys sleep for like 5 minutes when you're on call at the hospital overnights? And they admit, yeah, we're not really a great example of doing what we say is important, right? Do what we say, but not what we do is kind of what happens in that situation. So you also need to be a good example to your audience about balanced life and your commitment to your podcast. As you set up your calendar for when you are available, you need to also be ruthlessly focused on when you're not available. So no recording past 8 p.m., for example. I try to shut down every day at 7 p.m. before my son and grandchildren moved home. I'd had a 7 o'clock cutoff point. I could come upstairs and my wife would be home around 10, 15 minutes after 7 at night. So that was my schedule. Now, I'm not sure what's happening with all the things going on at this moment, but that was one of my hard stops. And delegate your guest coordination if possible. That'd be another way that you could protect your energy, have somebody help you do this for you instead of you doing it yourself. So while you are doing the other things in your life that are important, someone else, your podcast is still moving forward. That's going to cost money. So keep that in mind, but maybe somebody on your listening audience would volunteer to help you with that. You never know. There are a lot of tools that'll make your podcast editing faster, so look into those as well. And if your show feels unsustainable, then either pause the show, take a break, tell your audiences why you're taking a break, and do it in a guilt-free manner, because you needing a break is not unexpected. You need to take care of yourself. So adapt by batching ruthlessly, communicate openly to your audience, prioritize your why. Your listeners are going to stay connected when you show up authentically, even if you take a break, even if you're sporadic. And people are going to tell you you can't be sporadic. You have to be consistent. You have to. The only reason you have to do any of these things is because it's self-inflicted. You want to do it for yourself. Your audience doesn't care as much about you as you think they do. They love you, but they're not as infatuated with you as you are with yourself. So you got to realize that. So consistency is important, yeah, but they're also pretty resilient as an audience. If you take a big, long break, like 5 years, they might not be there when you come back, but a week here, a week there, a month here, a month there, you might see a little dip, but really, I think you'll be fine. Rebuild around the energy you have, not out of obligation. Your voice matters, so protect it by keeping your podcast inspiring and show up for your audience when you can, as often as you can. Your podcast means something special to somebody, and you are their person. So take care of yourself. Honor the time you have. Be productive with the time you have. Get rid of the distractions. Take away some of the things that don't fill you up. I can't sit and watch 7 hours of TV anymore like I used to, because I love doing this. This is what sparks my energy. This is what fills my cup. Spending time with you instead of spending time with a television, watching yet another episode of a mindless show. That's my approach. That's how I look at it. But you need to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. If you need help going through your calendar, if you need help just kind of talking it through, and you want to go beyond the episode with me, I'd love to help you. howtopodcast.ca, calendar's right there. It's got some limited time spots because of my life change, but I would gladly make time for you and be there for you if you have any questions. We can grab a virtual coffee and chat about your podcast. Reach out to me anytime. howtopodcast.ca. Now go track your week and find out where the gaps are. I'm sure you're going to find some. Take care. So here at the How to Podcast series, we love to hear from you. You might think that we get a lot of feedback. Man, we don't. We don't get a lot because people just feel like, why bother? Like, why does Dave really care what I have to say? And I do. I actually do really care what you have to say. I love your input. I love hearing from you. And we've started a survey for our listening audience, which includes you right here, right now. And I'd love, love, love for you to head over to howtopodcast.ca. And you'll see our survey right there on our website. And take a few minutes, come through, answer the thoughtful questions we're asking of you to make the show better. Not just for you, but for everyone. Your feedback is really going to help shape the show. And I selfishly just want to hear from you. So if you're thinking, Dave probably already knows what I think, I don't. I really don't. I'm not good at reading minds. My wife will confirm that completely. So I don't really know what you think of the show. I don't know if you like it, if you like how long the show is, how long the episodes are, that Dave's doing 365 episodes in a year. Oh my gosh. Like, I would love to hear from you and get your thoughts on this very show right here. So head over to howtopodcast.ca, click on our survey link. It's also in the show notes for every episode, in the most recent episodes, and I'd love to hear from you. So as a listener of this here very show, your feedback can make this show so much better. So much better. And I'm not drowning in emails and voice messages and speak pipes and buy me a coffees right now. So I'm putting the ask out to you right now, as a listener of the show, and you're still here, that you take a moment, head over to our website, click the link in the show notes for any episode, and go to our survey and let us know your thoughts about this show, how it could be better, and what you love, and what you're like, Dave, can you stop doing this? That would be really helpful. Thanks for being here and being part of the How to Podcast family. See you over at howtopodcast.ca. Talk soon. Thanks for being here. Bye. You're still here? Great. Okay. When I suggest, it's not required, but I suggest that all podcasters consider a pre-interview. The reason I do this is because I want to build a bridge with my guest. I want them to feel comfortable and safe. I want to know more about them than what I'm going to discover in the interview. Some people are going to push back on this and say a pre-interview is a bad idea, but if you just let me explain. One of the questions I like to ask my potential guests on a pre-interview call on a different day ahead of the recording's usually a week or so later. That gives me time to prepare. I get to go through their stuff and watch them on other shows and listen to them and read their book or whatever. So I need some time to do that. So meeting somebody hitting record is just, for me, not the best. I like that gap. Now, as a guest, I've had to meet people and go live, but I'm kind of used to talking on a mic, so I'm not too worried about that. Many of my guests have never done this before, so I want to make it as easy and comfortable for them as possible. One of the questions I like to ask people when they want to come on my show is, what are you curious about my audience? What can I tell you about them that you don't know? And if my guests have no questions about my audience at all, like they don't even care about you, they don't come on the show. Because they've already proven that you're not the most important person. They are. Generally, the people who have no questions about my audience are the ones who are just there to talk about themselves. My book, my program, my thing, my this, my that, my website, my coaching, my thing, my speaking engagement, my TED Talk, my, right? Not at any point do I hear them talk about you. So when I ask that question, it's a filter for me. I'm giving you a little, and again, not everybody's going to hear this because it's the end of the episode, right? Just you and me. So you're going to hear me do this to you if you come on the show. I'm going to ask you this, so you just got a sneak peek here. But if you have no questions about my audience, like you haven't thought through that and it's not a priority for you as a guest to come on the show, then you might not end up on the show. I want you to think about the audience. I want you to think about what they need and how you, as a guest, can fill the need for my audience. There might be a gap in my content where I haven't talked about the thing before. And it's a glaring miss from your perspective. That why have you never talked about this before? That means you've done research, by the way. You've looked through my content and you've identified some gaps. That's better to me than you coming on and talking about yourself. I want to bring value to you. And if there's no value for you, you don't come on the show. That's how it works. And that's how it should work for your show. So if you meet people, hit record 5 seconds after you meet them, how do you know in the bottom of your heart that this person is going to bring value to your show if you haven't vetted them to some degree? So when I see people on Facebook say, my guest canceled tonight and I need a guest, who can come on my show? That's the post. There's nothing about the name of the show, who it's for, what it's about, who the audience is, what do you talk about, what have you not talked about? Nope, just my guest didn't show up and I have to go live at 8 p.m. and I need somebody tonight. Who's available? How do you answer that? How? What? What? Right. That's a host that doesn't care about their audience. That's what that is. And that's a red flag for me as a guest. I don't want to go on that show because they don't even know who their topic is. They don't even know who their audience is. They just need to fill it with a warm body. What kind of quality conversation are you going to have from that? So my question to my guests, what do you want to know about my audience? What do you not know? What can I tell you about my audience that you haven't discovered yet? Any kind of form of that kind of question puts the onus on them and gives you a filter as to whether or not this person would be a great guest for your show. Try it. You might be surprised by the answer. And then it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to have the guest on. But for me, it's a filter. And it works really well. So if you need help, podcast.ca. Talk soon. Take care.